intensity and the duration of functioning associated with an emotional breakdown. So if we are able to recover quickly, then we can go back to our ADLs, we can go back to, getting our stuff done. But if we are not able to recover, then it lingers on to where it might actually turn into a nervous or a mental breakdown. So very, very important to understand at the back of our mind that we're looking at the intensity and frequency and how we are able to recover quickly. So, just ask yourself, what are some of the emotional or, the effect of emotional breakdown? Some of it we may not be able to touch here, but kind of just think about it personally. If you've had moments where you felt things were difficult for you, what were some of the effects? So now that we know the effect, let's move on to how do we address emotional breakdown, okay? And there are three main steps that I would like to address. Now, the first step to addressing emotional breakdown is actually becoming emotionally intelligent. Now, what do I mean by that? Emotional intelligence refers to our ability to identify and manage our own emotions. Our ability to identify and manage our own emotions. Now, there are two types of quotients that we usually, pay attention to. We have the IQ and the EQ. The intelligence quotient is usually measured during school. We take tests and we are able to quantify that and say, this person has an IQ of this or, IQ of that. And that gives us a little bit of understanding of where they are in terms of like the intelligence measure. EQ, not so much. Emotional quotient, we don't necessarily measure that, but it is something that really helps us to measure like our maturity level and how resilient we can be when we are emotionally broken. So even though it's not taught in school, it's very important that we understand that and kind of practice and put some thought and time into it to learn and how to develop our emotional intelligence. Now, to develop your emotional intelligence, there are three things that we need to do. First of all, we have to become emotionally aware. We have to have emotional awareness. And this is the ability to identify and name our own emotions. Now, growing up in Ghana, I know most of you be able to relate. Emotions are not necessarily identified and taught in school. So we only go with the basic generalized emotions. We talk about anger, we talk about sadness, we talk about happy, we talk about fear, and I think those are anger. I think I mentioned anger too. But we have a continuum of emotions. We have different kind of emotions, and especially those of us who grew up in this culture, you realize that we can talk about disgust, we can talk about distrust, we can talk about disappointment, we can talk about different kind of emotions. So it's very, very important that we set time aside and we become emotionally aware of all the different type of emotions. Is very important, because if we are able to identify the specific type of emotions, we will not be able to mix them up. So if somebody says something and I am disappointed, I will not call that sad. I'll be able to accurately identify the type of emotion that I'm actually feeling or going through. The second thing is to have the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving skills. If I am able to identify my emotion as being disappointed in the work that I did, then I take it a step further to ask myself, is there anything else that I can do better with my work? Is there anything else that I could have done better with what I just did? And if I'm able to identify, yes, maybe I could have, spent time researching on the topic a little bit more. Maybe I could have spent time asking questions in class. Maybe I could have spent time listening in. It helps me to come up with problem solution skills. So I'm able to identify specifically what I need to do to solve the problem so that in the future, I'm not disappointed in my own work. So, and the third thing, after we're able to identify the emotions, use it to help us in problem solving skills, we are also able to kind of regulate our emotions. So the third part is our ability to regulate our emotions. So that means that the ability to manage our emotions when necessary. Like for instance, using disappointment again. I present my work, my teacher looks at my work, and then he tells me, to whom much is given, much is expected, meaning that if I rate you so high as one of my good students, I expect more from you. So that indicates that my teacher is disappointed in me. Not only am I disappointed in myself, my teacher is also disappointed in myself. Now, how do I make sure that I don't sit in my disappointment, but I'm able to use self-soothing skills to help me recover and heal from the self-disappointment or comments from my teacher indicating that, you know, he or she may be disappointed in me. Now, when we talk about self-soothing skills, I want us to look at a baby. You know, as grown-ups, it sounds like we have a natural instinct that when a baby is crying, we're like, oh, please stop crying, please. And then maybe we rub them on the shoulder or we hug them. Those are self-soothing skills that the baby has not developed yet to regulate their emotions at that age. So as the baby grows up, you know, they have to learn the ability to regulate their emotions. Unfortunately, like I said, is not taught in school. So it falls on the parents on the line sometimes to have discussions like this at home too, so that we can help our kids develop those skills as they're growing. Personally, I'm still developing some skills. I'm like, yeah, I'm good with anger until I get angry. So, you know, I'm still developing those, you know, self-soothing skills. So as a grown-up, what are the things you tell yourself to regulate your emotions? What are the things you do to regulate your emotions? Some people personally, you know, burst into prayer, personally eat, personally not overeating, but at least eating something good. You know, ice cream or kind of just rubbing yourself on your shoulders. Some people use self-talk, it's going to be okay. I know sometimes at workplace when boom, 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 things are happening, I'm like, oh, I missed that. You know, I take a minute, I'm like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. You know, kind of just having those self-soothing techniques will help us to regulate our emotions. If we don't have that, what tends to happen is that when we are experiencing a strong emotional breakdown, we get stuck in it. So we are not able to disrupt that emotion. We get stuck in it. And then it leads to more intense emotions to where, you know, it might lead to a mental breakdown or an actual nervous breakdown. So very important to develop such techniques. The second step after we have identified our emotions, the ability to harness our emotions, regulate our emotions, which is under the first step, being emotionally intelligent.